Hi everybody, here is your WeatherCast America Quickcast for Monday, May 12th, 2025. In this forecast, we're going to break down an end to a persistent storm system in the southeast and a big heat wave for the central states this week, as well as a big pattern shift to a more active severe weather pattern by the end of the week and likely lasting into late May. So let's get into it. First, here's a look at your National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center's severe outlook for Monday, May 12th. SPC notes 2 areas of marginal risk, level 1 out of 5, for parts of the southeast and another in the northern plains. In the southeast and mid-Atlantic, we're still dealing with that cutoff low pressure that we've been following for over a week now across the southern US. Good news, this has added beneficial rain to areas of Florida and the southeast that have been in drought conditions. Much of Florida and the southeast has had several days of soaking rain and storms, and a few more rounds are expected early this week. As that low continues to degrade and finally moves out, we'll see decreased severe weather, but an isolated severe storm is still possible. This area will shift into the mid-Atlantic and the Ohio Valley tomorrow, where we'll still watch for an isolated severe storm in the afternoon. And as that southern cutoff low eventually kicks out, we'll look for ridging to build over the Gulf, and that will lead to warmer and drier conditions going into next week for Florida and the Gulf Coast. By Saturday and Sunday, temperatures could be in the mid-90s for the I-4 corridor in central Florida. Meanwhile, we look to the northern plains in eastern Montana and into the Dakotas for some severe storms late on Monday, as a cooler air mass over the northwest clashes with hot air over the northern plains. Some areas of northern Minnesota and North Dakota were pushing 100 degrees on Sunday and could easily be in the 90s by Monday afternoon. For our friends north of the 49th parallel, some severe storm potential will extend into the Canadian prairies on Monday for southern areas of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. On Sunday, there were a couple big hailstorms in that same region to the southwest of Winnipeg. As troughing extends into the northern plains by Wednesday, that will bring some relief to the hot temperatures, a bit early for those type of temperatures in this region. The heat will be pushed into the southern plains. Models are showing temperatures in the high 80s to mid 90s from central Kansas down into Oklahoma. Temperatures are likely to be in the low 100s for most of Texas, and even an area in the 110 to 115 range for portions of South Texas by midweek. Looking at the NAM 3K model, we see isolated to scattered showers and storms continuing in the southeast on Monday and expanding into the Ohio Valley and northeast by the middle of the week. As the low pressure moves and weakens, the coverage should decrease, as well as the chances for severe weather. Both the NAM and the HRRR indicate a slightly more concentrated area of storms in the mid-Atlantic from eastern North Carolina up through the Tidewater areas of Virginia, possibly into southern Maryland on Tuesday. A large area of severe storms is possible on Wednesday, with a bit of a conditional risk from North Dakota down through Nebraska. The Storm Prediction Center outlines a marginal risk for Wednesday in the northern plains, out ahead of that deepening trough in the Intermountain west. And while filming and editing this forecast video, SPC added a slight risk, level 2 out of 5 for that same region. Some of the latest data shows that this troughing will eject a bit more organized than the earlier models indicated, and this trough ejection and developing front will move into a warm, moist environment over the plains on Wednesday. So we'll watch for a potential severe weather live stream on Wednesday, especially if the models continue trending in a less conditional, more widespread severe weather day. I think the NAM is doing a pretty good job of highlighting a more concentrated area of storms in the Dakotas, with a potential for another strong to severe convective system working through that risk area. Further south into the Missouri Valley, there's a bit more of a conditional threat for severe weather with a stronger cap in place, so storm initiation would likely be later in the evening with some enhanced forcing from that nocturnal low-level jet that kicks in near sunset. The nocturnal low-level jet is especially common in the plains in spring and summer. If we get any development further south, that could bring additional damaging wind and large hail threats into areas from Sioux City down towards Omaha. Looking at some of the mid-range models, we can see the GFS model, the continued rain and storms in the southeast, moving into the Ohio Valley and the northeast on Tuesday into Wednesday, and even hanging around into Thursday. As the week continues, the strength of this low will continue to decrease, and that should also decrease some of the storm coverage. And by Thursday, we'll see that low over the northern plains deepens as it works north and east, and we can see on the models showing a negative tilt to the trough. This geometry helps amplify the severe weather with additional shear. As of this recording, the Storm Prediction Center outlines a day 4 risk for severe weather on Thursday from the Great Lakes down into the Ohio Valley. We're a few days out, so the exact area of severe weather risk could change a little as we get closer to May 15th. There are still some big questions for severe weather on Thursday. There's a potential for the cutoff low that's in the southeast and hanging around this week in the southeast through the mid-Atlantic to disrupt some of that moisture return into the Great Lakes by Thursday. And the further south in that risk area, there will be better moisture and temperatures at the surface, but the models also indicate stronger capping. There's also a bit of a disconnect showing between the deepening surface low over Minnesota being out ahead of the most favorable jet stream level winds. The strongest low-level jet will be wrapped around near the low in Minnesota, extending over into Wisconsin and maybe even into the UP of Michigan. And down in the Ohio Valley, where the temperatures and dew points are a little higher, we see a slightly weaker and more westerly low-level jet. It's still a little early to determine the exact storm modes for this event, but my gut right now is leaning towards a more linear storm mode with maybe an embedded QLCS tornado threat through the Great Lakes. And back behind the system, there's a potential for heavy snow, especially in the higher elevations of the Rockies into Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, and down even into parts of Colorado. On Friday, the Storm Prediction Center currently outlines a Day 5 severe weather risk in the mid-Mississippi Valley. I think this current risk area highlights the strongest confidence, but it's likely that the overall severe weather risk that day will expand as we get closer to May 16th. And based on the latest model runs, I'd expect the risk expansion a little further to the north and east in a corridor centered on the Ohio Valley. We can see on the 500 millibar height that this region will have strong westerly flow overspread the risk area, just as a frontal boundary from that system on Thursday stalls along the Ohio River. Right now, it looks like that environment will be supportive of convective systems. Looking a little further, we can also see some strong storms in the northeast and mid-Atlantic into the Carolinas with a northwest flow over that region on Saturday. That pattern isn't conducive for tornadoes, so the primary hazard would be damaging winds with some isolated large hail if any storms do go severe. And by Sunday, especially into Monday, we look back to the plains for another trough ejection from the Rockies into the southern plains. This would bring severe chances back to Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and potentially into the high plains, according to the latest GFS run. We'll then have to watch as the surface low deepens and ejects into the plains. That would bring another round of severe weather, potentially all hazard severe threat into the central US. Models get a little fuzzy over 10 days out, but that system could continue working east and pose additional severe threats for the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley by the middle of next week. So, as we watch this stubborn cutoff low eventually exit from the southeast and east coast this week, we'll watch for a pattern shift of broad troughing in the west and waves of energy ejecting from western troughing, clashing with the warm, moist air mass over the southeast. This pattern will bring an increased possibility of widespread severe weather events into the plains and the Great Lakes, starting as early as Wednesday, and especially right now Thursday and Friday of this week, and continuing with several rounds of severe weather events likely over the next 7 to 10 days at least. There are also some longer range indications that this active pattern will continue for the rest of May, as we see signs of above average temperatures in the southern and eastern tiers of the continental US, with cooler than average temperatures expected to the north and west. That general temperature outlook, combined with the pattern of general western troughing and southeast ridging, are broad signs of a conducive spring atmosphere for severe weather. So we'll be busy here on WeatherCast America with additional forecast videos, live severe weather coverage. Also be sure to check out our post section for daily weather outlooks. We'll be posting there even on days that aren't expected to have live streams and between forecast videos. So please like and subscribe and hit that bell icon to get notifications when we go live.